You don't understand. I could have had class. I could have been a contender. Hulk. Smash.
Mrs. Robinson, you're trying to seduce me.
Here's Johnny. What do you want?
Hey, motherfucker.
You never go ass to mouth.
Now what is so damn funny?
And here we go. We will not go quietly into the night. We will not vanish without a fight.
The Force will be with you. Always.
But the truth! You can't handle the truth! Showtime, everybody! Showtime!
Welcome, everybody, to another edition of the For Real Movie Club. And this month, for the month of April, we will be talking about Marvel Phase 2. Let's kick things off by introducing you to the panel this evening. First, to my left, which I'm sitting in a room alone, Tony Mango!
Woo! Great to be on the left.
Yeah, and to the right, on the shitter, Sam Lassio.
I am always right, and I am always on the shitter.
So let's just dive right into it, guys. We're all excited for Age of Ultron, and here are the 4 movies that are going to be leading up to that film. First and foremost, Iron Man gets his 3rd installment with Iron Man 3, because they're clever with names that way, in 2013, which features the Juggernaut superhero, Iron Man, and Tony Stark persona, which is perfectly displayed by Robert Downey Jr. So if you guys are listening to our podcast way back when, any of the months, I think this has been a year, would be this one.
Really? Wow.
Yeah, I think we've done 12. So it's pretty like, woo.
Oh, this is episode 13, this is.
Oh, shit, we passed a year. Woo!
Yeah.
So when it comes to the movies, we always talk about cast. We're just going to beat a dead horse if we talk about Iron Man 3's cast. But let's jump into it. Tony, what were your first impressions of Iron Man 3?
Coming off of Avengers, that was a real high, and Iron Man 3 was a low. Iron Man 2 is not as good as Iron Man 1, and Iron Man 3, in some ways it's better than Iron Man 2, and in some ways it isn't. So it was definitely disappointing. I remember being super excited for that movie because I was thinking to myself, oh man, we're going to get the fucking Mandarin. He looks badass. We've got this armor that looks kind of cool, even though it's got way too much gold in it. And there's a good chance that this could be fucking great when it comes to, like, picking up where it left off. The Marvel Cinematic Universe is just going crazy right now. And then it was just like, well, they fucked this up with the Mandarin. There's just like no Iron Man in this movie. And why is this happening? What? God damn it. Like, it was a huge disappointment. It's not a horrible movie by any means. It's something that I can watch, but it's a movie that was nowhere near as good as it should have been.
Sam, what was your first impressions of Iron Man 3?
Wow, this isn't what the trailers said. It was basically my first impression.
Hey, wait a minute. This isn't Iron Man 3. This is like some romantic comedy. Oh, shit, I'm in the wrong theater.
It's like, so he creates a new armor that's based on an electrical power source instead of the arc reactor. Has no weapons on it. And uses that for the entire movie. Because he has an entire Iron Legion and decides, I'm not going to call any of those other suits. Mandarin was fantastic until we found out who he was. And, like, people say, like, okay, I get it. It makes sense about, like, Killian saying, like, once you, like, put yourself out there, you're a target. So you gotta pull back from behind the scenes, use a false face. Like, I get that. But not with the Mandarin. Like, you can't use you can't have a guy in a Batman movie pulling all the strings, and then it turns out the Joker's not the Joker, and some other guy actually is, who looks nothing like the Joker. You know what I mean? Like, when you think Iron Man, you think the Mandarin, and we didn't get the Mandarin. So that was just a big kick in the balls.
So one thing that's different about this film, and I think it's worth bringing up, Iron Man 1 and Iron Man 2 were both directed by Jon Favreau. This one was not. This one had Shane Black at the helm when it comes to this film. That obviously does a difference. Marvel has a terrible track record with their directors getting frustrated leaving, like, because their creative freedom is limited because there's a larger scope that sometimes these directors may not A, care about, or B, see. BC. When it comes to Shane Black, do you feel that him directing this is why it couldn't get off the ground and doing the screenplay, or do you think whoever they put in that seat, this would have been a flop no matter what? Well, not a flop, but just not as impressive as it could have been. Sam?
I'm going to say it comes down to the script. I'm not going to say it was the director. I know the director's got this flavor for doing things during Christmas time. I actually thought that wasn't a bad thing, because then when you actually do the timeline, it only sets this movie up 6 months after the Avengers. So instead of dealing like a year later or something, it's a tangible amount of time. So he has this near-death experience. He's still doing the post-traumatic stress disorder. It made sense to me, like the whole Christmas thing. What I didn't like, I couldn't really pin on the director, at least that I'm aware of. So unless Tony's got something different.
Tony, what were your thoughts on Shane Black taking over?
It's a little weird. Shane Black, I'll admit, they're probably on other podcasts too. Maybe not. I don't remember when I started doing the podcast in relation to the different viewpoints that I had, but there was a time period for years and years and years that I kept using Lethal Weapon as my go-to. This is a dumb action flick that has no heart and no soul, and it's like what idiots would like, because I hadn't actually seen it. And a couple of years ago, I went through this big movie marathon kind of thing where I watched essentially a movie a day. I think I ended up getting up to like 300 movies that year, and a couple TV shows. So that's like the difference, but why it wasn't like 350 or something. But I watched the first Lethal Weapon movie, and I liked it a lot. And I liked it enough that I ended up watching Lethal Weapon 2, 3, and 4 almost like those 4 movies in a row and over a 2-day span, because, you start at night, you lead towards another one and stuff. But I grew to appreciate Shane Black, and I haven't watched a lot of his other movies, so when they announced that he was going to be directing this, I was disappointed because I wanted Favreau to come back, but I wasn't, like, afraid, because I was like, well, you know what, he's actually pulled off the Lethal Weapon ones. Like, these are going to be a good sign that we can get a good film out of him. I don't think that he has too much to blame for the downsides of this film. The Christmas thing I could have gone away with. It didn't really matter that much to me, but he specifically said that he wanted to kind of make this like a little bit like a Bond film, and I love Bond films, but that is one of the issues with this, I think, where he, and maybe this is a mandate from Marvel, I gotta feel that the Mandarin thing was like a 50-50 split. Like, he had a good idea that he thought of doing the twist, and Marvel maybe told him beforehand, we can't do the Mandarin as the Mandarin because we want to get around that and not be like racist. But he could have added some good flavor to this, and he could have been a little bit on the opposite side. I don't really know. I'd be really curious to see what was in the script before he came on board. But as far as the shots that seem like they're Shane Black shots and stuff, I like them. They just seem a little bit out of place.
When it comes to this phases that we've done, we did phase 1 last time, we're doing phase 2 this time. I want to bring this up because a lot of us walked out with a bad taste in our mouth after Iron Man 3 had ended, and they immediately corrected that when Thor: The Dark World released on Blu-ray. So we're going to talk about the one-shot. Did the one-shot, All Hail the King, I'll start with you, Tony, did it ease the blow of Iron Man 3, or do you think that that's just Marvel's way of saying, hey, I'm sorry, we fucked up?
Oh, that definitely is. They never would have done that one-shot if the reaction would have been positive. Guaranteed. Because everybody that had anything to do with the comics, fans of old Iron Man things and stuff, everybody was just like, fuck you, really? Like, that is a gross fuck you to the Mandarin character. And he's not the coolest character in the world. He's not the Joker or anything, but he is the principal Iron Man villain. And when you go and you don't do the 10 rings, you set it up in the first film and you reference it in the second one, and you're expecting to see the Mandarin with 10 actual rings, or at least something more than, like, if they would have gone with the Trevor Slattery character is the puppet, and they go the same exact route, but he's not a ridiculous puppet, I think that would have gone over much better. But they went with a cheap laugh, and that's what seemed insulting. So when they did the one shot, that was their means of being like, all right, guys, we pushed the comedy too far. And around this time period, I was critical of Marvel, and they seemed like they reined it back in with Winter Soldier. But with Iron Man 3 and with Thor the Dark World, it seemed like they were trying really too hard to make things too funny. And with the one shot, All Hail the King, that was just their means of apologizing to the crowd and being like, well, all right, we went for that extra laugh and we didn't need it, and we shit all over the comic thing, so we can't do Mandarin, but we're going to just let you guys do that on your own. You can make your own fantasies of it and stuff like that. So that helped it, but they shouldn't have had to do that to begin with.
Sam, what were your thoughts on the Marvel one-shot?
Basically the same as Tony. They said that they were planning this one-shot before the movie even came out. Like this wasn't like them being like, oh wow, they didn't like this, here, we'll retcon it. But I kind of believe it was. Just because they said it wasn't that doesn't make it true. I think they realized it.
Fair enough. To give some of the facts before we roll on to the next part of our Iron Man 3 discussion, it was released May 3rd, 2013 here in the United States, May 1st in China, and for whatever reason, April 14th everywhere else because, fuck America. We only came up with the character. The budget was $200 million. The box office hit $1.2 billion. The runtime's 130 minutes. And like I said, the country where they directed it is United States, and blah, 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 blah. Not much to say on Iron Man 3. Like you guys had said, it's the film that was immediately after Avengers, so the bar is at the roof. You got to try to jump something that's unjumpable. But Tony Stark was a character that really kicked this thing off, and when it comes to Tony Stark, he is the quick-witted, alcohol, lady stealing, he's Ric Flair in the Marvel Universe for you wrestling fans out there. Tony, how did you feel about his post-traumatic disorder from the New York fallout?
A lot of people are critical of that. I like it. I think it kind of puts him down on a different level. Like, he's always the guy that has the answers and he's above everybody else and stuff, and to see him vulnerable is something different. And if you're the type of guy that you think that you have, you're the god amongst men type of person and whatever, and then you realize, holy shit, I'm a big fish in a small pond, then you panic. And it's overdone a little bit in the movie. Like, there's a couple scenes where the kid's just kind of like, so what do you think that you're going to do next? And he's like, New York. That's a little bit shoddy, but I do like the idea that when, at least in that one scene where he's talking to Rhodey and the little kid comes up to him, the littler little kid, and it's just like, oh, what happened with New York and all this, and was that fucking scary? How like you almost died and shit? And then he's like, I gotta get out of here, like that kind of thing.
Yeah, he's just like, how did you get out of the wormhole? And he's just, oh fuck, like, no, don't, get away from me.
Yeah, that I liked. They overdo it a little bit, but I like the story of that, and I like that they seem to be carrying this forward. That could be a good motivator for everything from Age of Ultron to Infinity War and apparently Inhumans, because that comes afterward, which doesn't make any sense to me, but okay.
Sam, what was your thoughts on the whole PTSD or PTD or whatever the fuck they call it?
I loved it.
ADHD.
It makes complete sense. Of all of them, other than his brain and his intelligence, Tony Stark really is nothing.
5, 4, 3,
we
2,
joke
1.
about like Black Widow and Hawkeye, But if you take Iron Man out of the suit, he's done. Like, you can't take Banner out of the Hulk, because Banner will transform into it. You can't take away Hawkeye's skills and Black Widow's skills. You can't take away Cap's strength, and you can't take away Thor. Even when he had his powers gone, he was still a badass. Iron Man without his suit is nothing. And I think he realized that, and it really, like, the whole PTSD thing, if you were going to give it to one of them, it was going to be Stark, and I'm glad they did that.
So let's go through it. Tony, we'll start with you. High point, low point, and final thoughts and a ranking 1 to 10 on Iron Man 3.
It's tough. I'll do the favorite and least favorite part first, because that's a lot easier. Least favorite thing? Of course, the Mandarin twist. Fuck that. Favorite part, though, how awesome was it when all the armors show up?
Oh, yeah.
Like, as much as this movie has its flaws, that was something that was fucking cool. And we all thought we were stupid enough to be like, was that Hulkbuster? And it's Igor. And then it's like, as soon as we see the first shot of Hulkbuster in the Age of Ultron concept art, we're like, God damn it, of course that wasn't. Shitty little Igor. Like, you know, Iron Man 3 is a movie that, if the first Iron Man movie wasn't so damn good, this wouldn't look as bad as it is in comparison. So I like the movie, and it's something that, you know, I could put on and stuff like that, but compared to how great some of the other movies have been, it doesn't hold up. So if I'm generous, I'll give it a 7 out of 10.
Sam, what were your high points, low points, and a ranking 1 to 10 on Iron Man 3?
Low point, like Tony said, has got to be the Mandarin twist. And the fact that, like, I really did not like Pepper's thing at the end, where she kills Killian, and then she's like, that was really violent. It's like, I just, like, I groaned internally at that moment. High point is probably, like Tony said, it's got to be that final fight, like where he's jumping from armor to armor. We got to see like a lot of comic armor come to life. We saw Silver Centurion. You had like Igor popping up as like a proto Hulkbuster, maybe, like all these different things that like you love in the comics that you get to see. And then the fact that everybody bitched that Iron Man 3 didn't set up Phase 2. Well, it kind of did, because the Iron Legion became Ultron bots. So I'll give it the benefit of the doubt for that. Overall, just when I first saw this movie, I think I was next to Tony. I turned to him and I just went, I hated that. Like, that was just, the credits are rolling up and I just go, I hated that. The second time I saw it, it was a little bit easier on me. And by the third, fourth, fifth time I saw it, I was like, alright. Like, the stuff I hated about it, I'm over it. So now, just on its own, I gave Iron Man 1, last For Real Movie Club, a 9.5 out of 10. I gave Iron Man 2 a 4.5 out of 10. So, justifying the fact that I liked this more than Iron Man 2, I will give it a 5 out of 10.
Well, there you have it, folks. That is Iron Man 3, and it is in the bag. Stick around here on YouTube as we go into the next film here on the For Real Movie Club, Thor: The Dark World.